Hello, and welcome to another episode of Otaku Field Notes. And who would have thought that this video would ever come out? The first episode came out back in December, which is a good couple of months ago. And the reason actually as to why I haven't uploaded any more content with regards to Otaku Field Notes is because I severely underestimated what it takes, how much work goes into creating a consistent podcast, in particular when you're on your own. It's me filming, I'm coming up with all of the material. It's not like I'm talking to anyone, and I have to edit everything as well. So I've just been trying to figure out how I can make something that is both enjoyable and consistent. But I just figured I should wing it for now and just see how it goes, and I guess watch it evolve. Anyway, let's get into it. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the spring 2021 season. So I found that I'm not necessarily a person who enjoys seasonal anime, just because I don't like the idea of waiting a week for a new episode to come out, especially when you're following a lot of shows. It kind of like gets tedious to how would you say this in English? To keep up with stuff. And so I've come up with a strategy this season. So what I'll do is I'll give every single show a chance. I'll watch the first episode, maybe the second episode, and I'll decide which shows I'll be watching weekly, and I'll keep that to like a maximum of 3 or 4, and the rest I'll just wait until the end of the season, and I'll just binge everything. That's essentially what I did with the last season. I actually only watched Attack on Titan weekly, and then now I'm actually going through all of the shows that have been finishing the past couple of weeks. So that's about it. So it's the 11th of April now that I'm filming, which means that most of the episodes or most of the shows have aired at least one episode. And so I've actually gone through quite a lot of series, and I figured I'd just tell you a bit about them and my thoughts. The first one is Sakunetsu Kabbadi, and this is a sports anime. I am not necessarily someone who's very keen on those type of anime. Actually, I've just never really given them a chance. I tried out the climbing anime that I think came out 2 seasons back, and I didn't really enjoy that all too much. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by this one. So the sport is kabbadi, which is, I guess, a type of tag. It's like tag, but then extreme, with like wrestling, and I don't know, it's very complicated to explain. I don't really necessarily understand the sport, but it looks very interesting. So I've only watched the first episode, and we have been introduced to, I guess, most of the main characters, and it has kind of like the same setup as the sports climbing girls, in the sense that you have this team and they want an extra player, or anyway, you have a team and then this one character joins them, and now they're a complete team, and they play sports. But the reason as to why I really enjoyed the first episode is because I liked the humor, and the animation was also really, really nice. The sport is very extreme, and the animation uses that intensity to really amp up the energy of the show. And so like when you have them actually playing kabbadi, I don't know, I just get so energized and stoked. So it's really nice. So I'm not too sure if I'm going to be watching this on a weekly basis, but definitely once the season ends, I'll have watched it for sure. The next one is Vivy, Fluorite Eyes Song, and this is actually an anime original, and it is pretty cool. I was pleasantly surprised, especially like the start essentially really caught my attention, because it starts off in this amusement park and people left, right and center are just getting killed by robots, and it's just really gruesome, and you're just like, whoa, this is absolutely brutal. And that scenery is juxtaposed with this girl getting ready for her performance, and so the scene switches from like the brutal killings to this girl getting ready, and eventually you have the girl getting on stage and singing like a super sweet like, I don't know, Vocaloid, whatever, like music. And yeah, she's doing that in front of an arena of just massacred people that are on fire, and it's just like, whoa, what the heck is happening? And so as the episode continues, we learn that in the future AIs have become autonomous entities, they have rights, etc., etc., and they end up starting a war with humans, and yeah, they're just wiping our entire race out. Yeah. Essentially, I think everyone's worst nightmare, right? Anyway, in that future, there's this guy at the amusement park I was talking about who manages to send information from the future to a bot from the past, and he gives her instructions to prevent certain accidents or incidents from occurring in order to prevent this war. Yeah, it's really interesting so far. It looks very promising. The thing is, you know, with anime originals, you never know what you're expecting. I mean, you never know what to expect because there's no source material, and so that there's no actual consensus of like, okay, this is actually quite good or this is bad. On the other hand, what I really enjoy about anime originals is that they're very concise. Like, you know, they'll have a beginning, a middle, and an end. For instance, with Akudama Drive, which came out in autumn 2020, I enjoyed that one so much. I watched that one weekly, and I just liked the idea of closure at the end of the show. Same with Zankyo no Tero? Zankyo no Tero, like Terror in Resonance, I think that's the English title. Yeah, so this idea of a show ending, having closure, isn't something that you see very, very often in anime, because, you know, series go on hiatus, or they don't receive like the complete adaptation, and all sorts of things can occur that will cause an anime not to actually have an ending. And so it's nice to know that there is one, and yeah, that's something that I can appreciate a lot. Moving on, we have Shaman King, and this is a remake of the old Shaman King. So I didn't know about this series. I've never watched the original, so yeah, this is my first episode of Shaman King, and I actually quite enjoyed it. So essentially, a shaman has the ability to see and communicate with spirits and gods. And every 500 years, you have something that is called the shaman fight, where you have one shaman that I believe comes on top, and he gets to like shape the world, if that's correct. Something like that. They'll have power essentially. And so from what I understand from the first episode, you have this pair of twins, and the first twin to be birthed the oldest twin gets taken away by this evil spirit or something, and then the second kid comes out and the family raises him, I guess, and I think that's essentially the protagonist of the show. And so I'm guessing we're going to be watching him get ready for this shaman fight. So far, so good. I don't really have a particular opinion on this for now, I guess. I know that it's going to consist of 52 episodes, so I'm not too sure if I'm willing to watch this on a weekly basis, because if that would be the case, I would be watching this for an entire year. So I think I might watch it in chunks, like every couple of weeks I'll binge a couple of episodes. Moving on, we have Eden's Zero, and this is a show about this guy named Shiki who has lived his entire life on this island that is inhabited by robots. He's the only human there for some reason, and at some point you have this famous streamer girl with her mate, like a sidekick, like this type of mouse or cat like creature that comes along, and they go to that island to film and to stream stuff, and they meet Shiki, and yeah, he's there. He wants to make friends. He wants atarashi tomodachi. But the first thing he does to this girl is like he touches her boobs, and I was like, oh gosh, not another Meliodas. So I just really detest the whole trope of like, oh, sexual assault is like my quirky personality trait. And I'm just like, no. And when I saw that, yeah, I just got flashbacks from 7 Deadly Sins, and that day I was just in a no BS mode. So I just switched it off and I was like, okay, next episode. So if you like this show, please do let me know if it's worth watching. And also, does this guy like continue to do that stuff? Because that really took away from my enjoyment when it came to 7 Deadly Sins. And as the show was getting worse and worse, and as the animation was getting worse and worse, I just ended up dropping it, and now I actually really don't like 7 Deadly Sins. So moving on, I watched Tokyo Revengers. Actually not the first episode, but they came out with this, I guess, compilation of episode 1, 2, and 3. Like, they showed snippets of it. And I think it would be really confusing if you don't necessarily know what the show is all about. So Tokyo Revengers is that how you call it? I think it's, yeah. So Tokyo Revengers is a show about this guy. I think he's like in his like early 20s, mid 20s, somewhere there. And yeah, he's just like an average bloke, and he's at the train station kind of like contemplating his life, like how ordinary and boring it is, I guess. And all of a sudden he gets pushed, I think by mistake, in front of a train, and all of a sudden he wakes up and he is like back in secondary school, and he's like, huh, what the heck is going on? And when he was in secondary school, he was part of, I guess, like this quote unquote like kids gang or something. It was like those delinquent groups. And yeah, at that time as well, he was dating a girl who in the future actually gets killed by a gang, and so he is now trying to save that girl. And that's as much as I know from the show. I learned about the manga, last year, and I actually bought the first 2 volumes of the French edition. I haven't read them yet, but the show really intrigued me. This idea of time travel. I always think it's quite interesting when an author takes on such a complex system topic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The animation style looks really good. I really like the character designs as well. So I'm looking forward to this one. This might be actually one of the series that I end up choosing to watch on the regular. Then moving on, we have Godzilla SP. At least that's what I've written down. It's about Godzilla. About like wow, really? Now that I think about it, I'm not even too sure what happened in the first episode. You had people at this weird house that was running music by itself. I'm not doing a good explanation of this, but essentially the first episode is just, I guess, in the introduction of the characters. You have very smart people who are interested in, like, what are they interested in? Like science and biology. Anyway, all of a sudden, this really huge pterodactyl, the dinosaur with the wings, comes out of nowhere and starts attacking a city. And that's as much as we get in episode 1. So it's basically just character introduction, a bit of the storyline, and then the first attack. So yeah, it looked interesting. The animation wasn't bad. I actually quite enjoyed the color scheme of it, so that's nice. So it's definitely one that I'll be giving an extra chance. I mean, like, I'm putting it on hold, so I might look at it after a couple of weeks and see what I think about it. Yeah. Then moving on, we have Mars Red, and this is like a vampire historical fiction anime, and it's, I don't know, it's just like you have these vampires who, you have vampires. I just realized how hard it is to like give a synopsis of like a series after only having watched the first episode, because I was a bit confused with this one. So Mars Red is about this military guy, and they have this secret project where they're trying to recruit vampires, train vampires in order to fight for them. And yeah, the first episode we get introduced to the main character, who's like this high-ranking military official, and get our first interaction with the vampire. Was really confused about what was exactly going on. I wasn't that much of a fan of the animation style, if I'm being very, very honest. But I would say it wasn't a bad first episode, so I'm putting this on hold and I'll check it after the end of this season. Then moving on, we have jouran, the Princess of Snow and Blood. And this is another anime original, I believe. And I literally have no idea what this is about. I read the synopsis, I watched the first episode. Clueless. I don't know. It's like set in I don't know, like the early 1900s, I believe. And it's about this secret group of people who are attacking other people. And there's really not that much to say about it, also because it's an anime original, so there's not really any source material from it. The build-up is really, really slow. You don't get a lot of explanation if you're just watching the anime, clicking on the first episode. It's very hard to understand the relationships that the characters have with one another. The main character is this lady, and really no clue if she's like the bad guy or the good guy, or like what's happening, and what the goal, what her goal is. So it also didn't really seem more that interesting. I was just lost the first episode. So this is another anime that I'm going to be looking at the end of the season. And then hopefully also someone will know what the heck this is all about. Okay, so that's everything for seasonal anime. Moving on, we have... Gosh... like, it's even killing my mood thinking about it. We have The Way of the Househusband, the Netflix adaptation. Okay, so I kind of got caught up talking about the live action adaptation, but towards the end of this podcast, I remember to still talk about the anime adaptation. So no worries. Of the manga. So just a quick synopsis. The Way of the Househusband is an incredibly popular manga that centers around a man named Tatsu, who is a former Yakuza member. And he had this one night where he beat up an entire section of the Yakuza, and he then met this woman and decided to marry her and quit the Yakuza, become a house husband while his wife works. And yeah, it's a gag manga centered around his life living as a house husband. And I really like it a lot. The humor holds up, at least for me, for the past 4 volumes that I've read. It's very funny. So the entire gag is that he is still like such a gang member, and so he does everything as a Yakuza, like cleaning his house, buying stuff at a sale, and it's just so much fun. So when I heard that they were making a live adaptation of it, is that how you call it? Like with actual humans, and an anime adaptation as well, I was just super excited over that. Generally, when it comes to these live adaptations, I'm not that stoked. I'm a bit apprehensive because having had experience watching many of these live action adaptations of, manga, they tend to not be very good. But I figured since it's, it's just real life, you don't have any fantasy elements, you can actually quite easily adapt it and make it good, But then I watched it and I really didn't like it. I also didn't like how much they changed, because they actually gave Tatsu and his wife a kid, and so that changed up the dynamics, and I don't know exactly why they did that. But the thing that irked me the most about this series was the editing. It was so bad. It honestly gave me whiplash. I was feeling vertigo. I didn't know what was happening. There was so many different shots and zooms and special effects. It felt like, those Indian drama TV shows that everyone makes fun of on YouTube because it's so over-edited. And that was the same case here. And so I felt it so tough to actually enjoy calmly. and also the amount of exposure was a lot, and the warmth as well. I'm talking about like the coloring of the show. I did not like it. I didn't understand why there was so much exposure. Like, it was hard to even like sometimes recognize specific objects in the shot because the exposure was so high. Anyway, moving on. What else? I watched High Rise Invasion, and that was also a Netflix show. I binged that one, and I thought it was actually pretty good, and not necessarily brilliant, if I'm being very honest. I think that the animation wasn't all that great, and that the pacing was really off, especially when it came to like action scenes. Okay, I should even explain what High Rise Invasion is. So you have the secondary school girl, and all of a sudden she gets transported. She all of a sudden she ends up in this fantasy weird world where there are only like high-rise buildings, like I keep forgetting the English word for it, just very, very high buildings. And she's on the rooftop, and she finds that she can't get lower than just a couple of floors. She can't get to the ground floor. Well, you can get to the ground floor, but you can only get there the fastest way, so to speak. And quite quickly she finds that there are all these people with masks on their faces, and they are trying to kill the people without masks. And she starts to understand that they don't necessarily want to kill them by like their own hand. They want to drive them to actually, jump. And she finds that her brother is in that same world as well. And so this season follows her as she tries to survive in this like crazy world, trying to find her brother. And I had read a couple of chapters of the series, and I quite liked it. It was pretty good, but like I said, the animation was a bit choppy. So sometimes you'll have these action scenes where she's like running away from a masked man, and she like, I don't know, she gets to a place, and then there's like a lot of time in between the action, if it makes sense. I mean, like, if someone's running after you, you would expect that it to be, quite continuous, right? But there's these weird sort of pauses in between, and that kind of like gave me pause. It kind of took me out of the intensity of the chase, if you can call it, yeah. Essentially, yeah, it took me out of the action scenes. So that was kind of a disappointment, because I noticed that it happened a couple of times. And besides that, just the panty shots. I know I might be in the minority here, but I feel like, why is it necessary to put so many panty shots in a show? Like, I get it's fan service and all of that, but it's sometimes it just really like breaks the experience for me, if that makes any sense. I enjoy getting immersed in what I'm watching, and so having something that is completely foreign to the storyline get interjected like so deliberately and so intensely, it takes me out of that storyline, because I'm just following the storyline. Someone's ass because an animator wanted to put some fan service into it. Okay, move on, storyline. So that's kind of like what I mean. It causes this break, and that's the main thing that irks me. I mean, like, fine if you want to put fan service in a show in which it works, you know, like I can't think of anything at the top of my mind, but I'm sure that there are shows out there in which fan service it can be inserted more smoothly and be actually integrated into it quite well, rather than it being so like foreign in a show. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I'm actually quite interesting. If you enjoy fan service a lot, do let me know, like, does that happen to you sometimes, that the fan service like takes you out of the story, or is it something that just makes it better? I don't really think I want to talk about this all that much today, but I finally watched Violet Evergarden. I've actually watched it a couple of times, but without subtitles, and I didn't understand jack those times. It's just a very beautiful show on its own, and so it's nice to watch it even though you don't understand anything of it. But yeah, this time I put on subtitles, I followed along the story, and I cried so much. I don't think I've ever cried over a show as much as I have with Violet Evergarden, because of, like I said, the aesthetics, chef's kiss. It's amazing. The storyline is what I love. Also, how I'm just talking about it now. I love how every single episode is almost like self-contained. Of course, you have Violet Evergarden and her own story, her objective of understanding what aishiteru means, what I love you means. Don't know why I said it in Japanese, but like I said, yeah, you have that. I love that they have that main plot, but having all these separate stories, like in every episode, is just so nice, because after every episode you kind of feel that type of closure, if that makes any sense. And the stories, for the most part, are very, very beautiful. Like, there are some that, I don't even want to, I'm even thinking of it, and like I can feel like the tears well up, because it's just it's so beautiful and it's so heartbreaking. I mean, like, you have so many different people dealing. I think like the main thing is with loss, and how that affects you as a person, and how that affects your relationships with other people. And yeah, it's just very beautiful to see. I think like my favorite ones, and also the ones that I cried the most the ones that I cried the most with, so, okay, I'm going to spoil a bit, but I mean, like, the show's been out for a couple of years now. So, the episode in which you had the mother writing letters to her daughter, and then her daughter, like, reading it, like, on all of her birthdays. Oh my gosh, that was so sad. I'm so sorry, but and my chair's cracking. It was so beautiful. And also that guy who writes plays, and he's writing one for his child that passed away. Oh gosh, like, I'm already tearing up, like, talking about it. And I can hear my voice becoming a bit shaky, but when I tell you I sobbed watching those, like, I couldn't even get the sobs out. It was it was really bad. Oh my gosh, no. No. Oh my gosh, like, I could not, like, to have an anime get me emotional, after what? It's been like an entire month since I've watched this. It's amazing. Would highly recommend. One of my favorite anime. Maybe I should even make a video about this one. Who knows? We'll see if I can get through that one without crying. Anyway, I actually watched 2 movies that I was really excited for. So the first one is Yes, No, or Maybe. And this is a story about two guys. One is a news broadcaster and the other one is an animator. And it's like, it's essentially it's like a romance between these 2 guys. But the thing is that they actually, the first time they meet, the news broadcaster is doing a story on him because he's like becoming a famous animator, and the news broadcaster always has like this very nice and sweet kind of like exterior, but on the inside he's kind of like an a-hole. Like he's not necessarily as nice on the inside as he is on the outside. And the way this anime shows that is by having like a tiny chibi version of him on the side, like expressing his inner thoughts. And that I thought was very brilliant. It was very hilarious to see that. Anyway, yeah, so they meet in that way. But then when the news broadcaster is like going home, he has like his mask on, and the animator by mistake runs into him at a traffic sign or something, and because he's wearing this mask, the broadcaster feels like he has some sense of anonymity, and so he's like, yeah, look what you did, and like he's being really mean and stuff like that. And the animator's like, dude, I hurt my wrist, or I hurt something, I can't really like do my work now. So first of all, you're going to walk me home, and you are going to help me with my animation. And this dude is like so pissed. He's like, I'm not gonna do it, like what the heck. And anyway, he ends up doing it. And they strike up this friendship, this weird type of friendship, but it's kind of funny to see. And so now the news broadcaster reporter knows the animator, how would you say that, like on the so the animator knows the news reporter, like his like him as the news reporter, but he also knows him as this like anonymous meanie. And so he actually likes both, but he doesn't know that they're the same person. And so that's kind of like what the movie is about. And this was so cute. This was such a fun movie. Asterisks. Like, the movie was doing everything so well. Like, it was... I'm not one to actually watch a lot of like romance type of stuff, but I'm slowly getting into that. So as a newbie, I really enjoyed this. And then they decided to destroy this entire movie in the last 5 minutes. So essentially what happens is that they get together, obviously, and you have this scene where they have some sexy time, but it's actually not really sexy time because the animator essentially assaults him sexually, and it's portrayed as like a very like cutesy romance thing. And I like, it made me like so sick. I just don't understand, like, the amount of disappointment that I felt, like, watching those last 5 minutes. It felt like baking, like, an amazing cake and glazing it beautifully, decorating it, like, to the stars, essentially. And you take it out of the oven and you're walking to the dining table, and then you trip over your own feet right before you get to the table, and you bang your head on the edge of the table and the cake just falls onto the floor. That's how the ending of this movie felt. That's the pain and the disappointment that I felt, because it was like, you had such a cute and fun story here, and you're going to mess that up by adding sexual assault to it. It's like, why would you do that? And it's just very disappointing. Why would you ruin something so good? I mean, clearly you all knew what you were doing, like in the first 45 minutes. Like, why did the last 5 minutes have to be so horrendous and so vastly different from the rest of the story? And so it's just a disappointment, and therefore I would say watch this up until I believe the 45-minute mark. Just cut it off at the time this dude gives him the first kiss, and leave it at that, and just say, you know what, the rest of the movie, it doesn't exist, and then you have a solid movie. So that's my opinion on yes, no, or maybe. Did I even say the title? Who knows? I'll see in post. Moving on, I have Donika Naruhibi, Happy Go Lucky Days, and this is like an anthology movie. It contains 3 stories, and they get progressively worse. It's really bad. So the first story centers around these 2 women who go to a wedding of the girl that they were in love with. One knew her from her time in secondary school, and the other knew her later in life, I think in university or even later than that. Anyway, the woman ends up marrying a guy, and these 2 women meet each other at the wedding in the bathroom, and they strike up a conversation, and they end up dating each other. And yeah, I wouldn't say this is a very bad story. It was just very bland. And because you have this movie and it's split into 3, the stories are all quite short, and so there's not really any character development or anything like that. So yeah, it was just kind of like a bland story. Then the second one is where the problems start. So this centers around a teacher who teaches at an all-boys secondary school or high school, and he is a closeted gay man, but he wants his pupils to fall in love with him, and it's really, really weird. And yeah, is there really much more I have to say about this story? It's really weird, really uncomfortable. It's just very, very weird. I already said that. Moving on, we have the last story, and this is where if you thought the second story was bad, this one is even worse. I at this point I'm what were these people thinking when they were making this movie? Are we just gonna gather all of the bad takes within anime and then put them in one movie? Who knows? So this third story is about a young kid in primary school and the girl that he's dating. Anyway, apparently he is living, of course, with his parents, but also his cousin. And the reason why his cousin is there is because his cousin got kicked out of her house because she made an adult video, and the dad was like, nope, you need to leave. And so now she's living in the same house. They're actually staying in the same room, and it's just incredibly weird because the cousin is so gross. Like, she asks him, like, hey, do you want to like squeeze my boobs and things like that? And like the dad of the kid is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch like your tape. And it's just all so incredibly weird and disgusting how they all behave around this tape. And besides that, the cousin is encouraging this little boy, I think he's like 10 or something, to bang his girlfriend. And it's like, why are you trying to do that? And also, why did you offer for him to squeeze your boobs? It's just so weird. It's just, I don't know what this is. I hated this movie. And that's everything I have to say about it. Okay, what else is there to say? I've been talking a lot about anime. I've also read a bit of manga, but I might just discuss that in another episode. I have actually been on a horror binge. I've been trying to watch as much horror as I can, and I've had a couple of hits, a couple of misses. I think I might, well, a lot of misses. I think I might actually make an entire video with some recommendations, so let me know if you're interested in that. Nevertheless, there's this one that I really enjoyed, The Curse of KAZUO UMEZU. So for those who don't know, KAZUO UMEZU is like one of the most famous horror manga artists out there. I've talked about him before when talking about Junji Ito, because Ito actually used to read his manga as a kid, and he was thus also a huge inspiration. And if you also like read both of their works, you can definitely see the similarities and the inspiration, which is really cool. But yeah, he apparently had like an OVA, I think it was only an OVA, that contained 2 horror stories, and they were pretty good. I enjoyed them. So one was about this girl who went to a haunted house, and the other one was about a girl that was having really weird nightmares about a monster that was like coming outside of her neck or something like that. It's been a while since I watched it, but you can actually watch it on YouTube, so I'll leave a link in the description box below. But it's actually quite interesting to I guess like really dive deep into specific genres of anime and kind of like see how things have evolved, and looking at the different factions of that as well. What I'm referring to is actually, for instance, the difference between shoujo horror and shonen horror, and how to say this in a concise way. So the thing is, when people, okay, I'm gonna go a bit on a tangent here, but the thing is, when people talk about shoujo, I think a lot of people, the first thing they think about is like romance and like historical fiction about princesses and princes and stuff like that. But shoujo is so much more than that, and it kind of like pains me to see the lack of interest in this type of manga. There's a decline in Japan as well, but here in the West, it's I definitely, even if you look on YouTube, how much interest there is in it, there's not that much. But then again, it's interesting for me then that I'm able to kind of like do my own research and look into it, even though it is kind of hard because a lot of the information is in Japanese, and I'm not all that good at reading in Japanese, but still, like, being able to make videos about it is incredibly rewarding. Like, I made this one video about the Year 24 group, which was a group of female manga artists who who started to write shoujo manga, and that was kind of like the first huge influx of female manga artists in the industry, and their contributions. It's very interesting to see how much they truly like shaped the shoujo landscape as it is right now. But why am I saying all of this? Essentially, yeah, I'm doing a lot of research into that, even though it's been a bit slow. But yeah, one of the genres within shoujo that I'm very interested in is horror, because I mean, I've always been very much interested in horror. I mean, as a kid, I used to read the Griezelbus, which is like a Dutch series about this skeleton bus driver and this weird guy who like steals kids, and I think like tries to steal the life force from them. Anyway, my mom thought it was really weird and concerning that I was like into all of that creepy stuff at like age 6, 7, but you know, I turned out quite decent, you know. she always had like, she was very worried about me, but I'm very thankful that she allowed me to like consume all of that stuff, because even now I still have a huge passion for horror media. But yeah, saying that, going back to what I was saying, it's been really cool to see the difference between shoujo horror and shonen horror. When it comes to shoujo horror, one of like the biggest differences is the relationships. Like romance is such a huge thing in shoujo horror, and not only like romance, but also like the horror of being desperate to retain beauty and vanity, and like how much are you willing to sacrifice for things such as beauty? How much are you willing to sacrifice for the sake of your lover and stuff like that? And that gets explored quite a lot within shoujo horror, and I think that's really cool because it adds like an additional layer, which I find very interesting. But yeah, I think also not a lot of people really notice that, for instance, like a cool thing that I always like to think about is that Junji Ito actually writes quite a lot of shoujo horror. I'm pretty sure Tomie is a shoujo horror. I think it was first published in a shoujo magazine. Ito still publishes in shoujo magazines, predominantly, I'm pretty sure exclusively Nemuki Plus. At least when I've been looking for like where his work is coming out in, it's been in Nemuki Plus, which is a shoujo magazine, if I'm not mistaken. So it's cool to see that. And I mean, you if you think about it, you can see that in some of Ito's work. Tomie, for instance, it's all about this infatuation, this beauty that Tomie has, and how that affects people and makes them go completely insane. I think also in the recent English publication of Ito's work, you have called Love Stories. I'm pretty sure I read it a couple of months back when I got like a digital copy from Viz. The main story of that collection centers around this mysterious boy who gives people fortune when it comes to love. And we see like how twisted things become when people are completely like obsessed with a person and desperate to receive their love. So yeah, like I'm just kind of like spitballing here because I'm pretty sure there's a video here with regards to shoujo horror. I also found this really cool magazine on shoujo horror in which they kind of like go over certain interesting pieces within that genre. So I'm looking to get that in the future. I've also found that some comics have been republishing some older shoujo horror as well. So I think like Saint Rosalind is one, and I also got one from this one author that I forgot the name of, but yeah, it's supposed to be coming in coming week, so yeah, that should be exciting. We'll see what I come up with. Yeah, so Yeah, The Curse of KAZUO UMEZU, I would recommend. I'm currently watching the the pet shop of horrors, I believe. It's this story about this pet shop in Chinatown in Japan, and this guy is selling pets, but every time the people who buy the pets there turn up dead. And it's an OVA, and so you have 4 episodes that center around 4 different like cases. And so far, so good actually. So yeah, I think after my horror binge, I'm gonna expand. I'm not too sure what I want to do, because I like the way I'm thinking now, because like I'm thinking of like what type of content to make for YouTube as well, right? When I'm looking at like which type of content in terms of anime do I want to consume, or manga. And I think I'm a bit torn between like really going deep into shoujo, or that I should go into horror, or just do both, or I don't know, try something else maybe. I was thinking of looking at specifically romance as well, because I've become quite interested in that after reading Perfect. Oh, what's it called? I forget. This one manga about this couple, this one guy, he got into an accident and is in a wheelchair, and his girlfriend, and they knew each other like in high school, but they never dated then, and that was when he was still before he became disabled. Yeah, so that one I read. I really enjoyed the first volume. Then the other one that I read was Aoharu Ride, like Blue Spring Ride. I think that's the one. Yeah, I really like that manga. I'm not too sure if I spoke about this in the first episode, but there's just something about the way, I think it's Iyo Saka, I don't know. But the author, the way in which the mangaka is able to create nostalgia for secondary school romances that I never had is remarkable. It just makes me very giddy, and it's very immersing. Like I feel the way the main character, the girl, is feeling, and I like that a lot. And yeah, it's definitely shaped my opinion when it comes to romance, because I've never really been one to be interested in that, but I'm finding things that I'm liking a lot actually. So yeah, there's just so much material out there with regards to manga and anime that I think haven't really been explored a lot on YouTube. So I'm like, oh, this would be cool to talk about, and I keep like starting like new video ideas, and I get quite far with them as well. Like I have like maybe like 6 videos now that I've written like for 50%, and these are like really long videos that I've had to research a lot. So yeah, we'll just see how far I get with all of that. Yeah, I should really also just in general try and get a better I guess like schedule when it comes to creating videos, because I have a lot of ideas, but they're just at so many different stages. Some are like really good ideas that I just need to like invest time in to actually film. I have some that I've already finished writing that I need to record, and then I have ones that I still need to do a lot of research for. So yeah, it's sometimes you'll see like a video of mine and it has been in the making for like a year. Even like the review for The Way of the Househusband, I just checked to see when I wrote that. It was back in July. And it's like completely written and it's just ready to go. I just need to like record it. So who knows, that might be up in a week or maybe next year. I don't know. We'll see about that. Yeah, what else did I do? Yeah, so I also watched this one horror anime movie. I think it's a movie. It's called cosetto no shoujo, and I hated it so much. It's essentially about this lolly. Okay, in one sentence, creepy university student falls in love with dead 17th century lolly. That's the spiel of it. It's so boring. There's no character development. There are no characters to like because, of course, the main character is this university dude who has fallen in love with the image of a 11-year-old lolly that was killed in the 18th or 17th century, and her spirit is trying to I don't know, is this very weird thing of her spirit is trying to put the spirit of her murderer inside of this boy so that this guy can get killed or suffer, and so that she can be free. That I tried really hard to understand this series, and I got nothing. It was really weird and very unsettling, but not in the way you would like from a horror anime, unfortunately. And that's something that I feel kind of bad about, because I feel like horror is such a great genre, and I think that it has a lot of potential when it comes to anime, because of course it gives... Sorry, someone was doing something really weird outside, but anyway, I feel like horror has so much potential within anime. I mean, there's this one movie that I watched. I think it's called Aru Zombie Shoujo no Sainan. And I did not like the movie, but the horror scenes, the gore, exactly what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a horror anime. I mean, arms getting cut off and faces slammed into pulp. I'm sorry, this is very graphic, but I mean, for me, I'm looking for a good storyline, and I'm looking for imagery that is unsettling, not to the point that I'm like the Midori. At least I haven't watched that movie, but what you'll see with Midori, but just good old horror gore, and so I feel like anime has so much potential, but that there hasn't been that many good adaptations or anime that really I don't know, that really exploit all of the advantages that you do get when you animate a story. So yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that Uzumaki, the one that's coming out this year, supposedly, is going to be really good. I'm praying this is going to be really good, because I've watched the Junji Ito collection, and it's it's all right. But it's not. It doesn't translate the horror in Ito's work well. It doesn't have that same intensity and that same feeling of feeling unsettled. It doesn't translate when it comes to the Junji Ito collection. I watched Gyo. That adaptation was horrendous. It was actually laughable. It was horrible. So I'm really hoping that this is gonna be a good adaptation. I do actually really like the choice that they made of choosing to keep it black and white, and so closer to the source material, and I'm wondering how close they're going to keep it. But from what I saw, it looks promising, but I'm not gonna have my hopes up, because I don't want to feel the way I felt when I watched the Way of the Househusband, because that was disappointment with a capital D. It's not any. Oh wait, I didn't even talk about the animation. I was just so obsessed with the live action. The animation was. If I tell you, this was a 1 frame per second anime. This was a PowerPoint slide of an animation. This essentially was just reading, like listening to the audiobook of the manga and reading the manga whilst it was like with color. That's what it was. And it was so upsetting. And the thing is that it's not bad. If you look at it from like just an anime only perspective, if you don't know like the source material, it's quite alright, because I mean the comedy, the gag, like the whole story, the way of the house husband is funny, and so you still get that, you still get the humor. But the problem that I have here is that you can use, there's so much stuff within animation that you can use, that you can exploit in order to elevate the manga, or at least get as good as the manga or with the anime. I mean, like there's so much like action scenes, there's so much like intensity that could be displayed so well via animation, with use of voices and sound design. And first of all, I do have to commend them for casting the same guy who does the voice of Ogata Hyakunosuke from Golden Kamuy, because he's perfect for that. He also plays in Jujutsu Kaisen and To Your Eternity, but we'll talk about that another time. But he's just a great voice actor. He's perfect for the role. He has that really like mysterious dark voice, which I felt fit Tatsu perfectly. And so I don't have anything to say with regards to the voice acting, but just why wasn't it animated? That's my question. Why didn't you animate it? Because it could have been like the action to it, the intensity, like I said, could have been expressed so well by means of animation, and it just wasn't there. Also, the sound design sometimes was really weird. I know one thing that really stood out to me was this one point when Tatsu was like putting a plastic bottle into the like plastic bottle dispensary, and the thing was just like, and they were talking over it and you could hardly even hear them. It was just really weird, and the sound was continuing even after Tatsu had put the bottle in for like an extended amount of time. It was just all kind of a mess. And I'm very sad to see something that could have had so much potential just like not even come close to what it deserves, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's a bad anime, but it's bad for the potential that it had. And that's very unfortunate, and that's why I was really disappointed. But besides that, from reading certain articles, and I can't be for sure like 100% because they were all in Japanese, but from what I understood, this is what the manga artist wanted. They wanted to keep that feel of the comic, and from what I understand, the person behind the animation said that the animators struggled a lot with that. So it's also kind of like sad, you know, because it's like, okay, well, I mean, of course, because it's obviously the manga artist's work, and so they have ownership, and so they can decide what they want to see. well, depending on like the deals that they sign, but you know, they have their wishes and this is what they wanted, and it's unfortunate to see that it didn't resonate with the Western audience, and that the animators had such a hard time doing it, and then eventually the payout, at least for the Western side, was not that much. However, from looking at the Japanese audience, I've actually seen that a lot of people have been enjoying it and have been enjoying that format. Also, if you look at the trailer that was released for the Japanese audience, a lot of people have just been saying, wow, I'm really excited, I'm so excited. But then if you go to the Netflix, the English-speaking one, the trailer for the English audience, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm hoping that this is not the actual animation. And so it's interesting to see like how like it's like so different the audiences feel depending on like a country. So that was actually quite interesting, because I also went on Twitter and checked, and from what I read, like the latest tweets, people were actually quite excited about that. But who knows, I could be wrong. Maybe if I waited like a couple of days longer, that more consensus would have come out. But I mean, like, even if you're comparing both audiences, it was interesting to see this immediate disappointment in the West, and then in Japan, just this positive attitude towards it. And I think that's also very interesting when it comes to animes and seeing which types work well in Japan and how some don't always pop off here in the West. I mean, a really good example, actually two good examples, are Kingdom and Golden Kamuy. Those are so incredibly popular in Japan, yet not so much here. And I think it's interesting to look at that and see why exactly certain things appeal to certain groups. I think when you're looking at a show, for instance, like Golden Kamuy, there is a lot of like historical context that people in the West may not necessarily understand, because it's not their history, because Golden Kamuy is set in the early 20th century, and so just after the Russo-Japanese War. And there's just a lot of it's so Japanese, because I mean it's so ingrained in the history. You have so many historical figures. You have how would you call it, ethnic groups that people outside of Japan might have never known about. Like, for instance, I didn't know anything about the Ainu and other ethnic minorities that lived in the north of Japan, and their history and what happened to them. And it's only thanks to the show that I actually got to know about it and started researching and looking up things and finding out all of these things, like their history and how the Japanese government almost completely decimated their culture and those type of things, and seeing how persistent they are still. And to this day, that they're trying their best to preserve their history, preserve their culture. Yeah, without this show, I wouldn't have known about that. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. But I've always questioned the huge contrast between the popularity of Golden Kamuy in Japan and here in the West. What else do I have to say? All of a sudden, I can easily talk for so long. So this is very, very good news for me, because I'll definitely be making another episode soon. I think I'll just leave it on this one recommendation. So this episode turns out to only to not really have a lot of manga recommendations and stuff, but I'll get to that in the next episode, in future episodes. So I found this hidden gem well, is it really hidden? It's been watched like 1.8 million times at as of recording, and it's called Puparia, and it's this 3-minute short independently made by this one guy who used to work in the industry, and then apparently he quit for a year. He decided not to draw anything because he felt that his creativity and his passion for animation was dwindling, and then he took 3 years to make this 3-minute animation, and it's stunning. Like, it's freely available on YouTube. I would highly recommend it. Like, it's so beautiful, and the thing that I like about this is that the imagery is so incredibly rich that it feels like you've just entered like this new fantasy world that you've never heard about, and you're just seeing like small snippets of different parts of this world, and you're just like, whoa, like there's so many stories here, and they're just waiting to get told. And so it's, I don't know, for me it was very affecting, if that makes any sense. It really gripped me, and I really hope that the industry will give him an opportunity to make something bigger, because I think that if this is just like an insight on his creativity, that he would be able to make like such stunning imagery, stories. Well, because like it's not really a story, right? It's just like specific shots of like scenes. But if his storytelling is as strong as his talent to depict things visually, like this stuff slaps so hard. Like, I'm speechless now because it's hard for me to like even actually accurately describe how I feel about his work, but it's so beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's mysterious as well. It feels magical. But yeah, he also has a documentary. I've watched a small chunk of it, but yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the rest, and I'll let you know in the next episode, or in like another episode, who knows. But yeah, I would highly recommend checking it out. I'll leave a link in the description box below. But I see that I've been recording for quite some time, so this is gonna be really fun to edit, I think. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. It's definitely given me a bit of energy. I think if you would compare like how I was feeling at the start of this episode, I was a bit shaky. It's been a while since I filmed something, and yeah, life's just been stressful with like university and trying to balance everything. So yeah, if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in like supporting me, you can join my Patreon. So the cool thing about my Patreon is that I have a book club, like starting from the first tier, which is $1. I have a book club where we read classics, like literature, so which is completely different from this. But I also have a Discord, and we talk a lot about anime, manga, essentially all of my interests: skating, knitting, books, and I'm on there very often. Like I'm actively chatting with everyone. So if you're interested in that, yeah, I'll put a link in the description box. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I hope to see you in another episode. Hopefully not in a couple of months. Cheers.